good evening, and welcome to a new weekly Wednesday webinar. Our first weekly Wednesday webinar of December, and at the same time, is one of the last ones as well for 2025. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome again to a new weekly Wednesday webinar. My name is Eddie Villanueva, your official MC. Thank you so much for your support. It has been a year of surprises, a lot of special guests. Tonight won't be an exception. You're gonna get a lot of love from the panelist team. And we're so happy that you're here with us. Please make sure that if you want to engage with us, you can, use the chat feature, the Q&A as well. You can send your questions. You can tell us where joining us from. Or if you just want to say hi and happy holidays, you can do that as well. So once again, thank you so much for being here with us. If this is your first time, welcome to the weekly Wednesday webinars. And if you're one of our regulars, thank you so much for your, support each and every Wednesday. So please make sure you get a drink. If it's, dinner time, make sure you get, your hot meal. If you want to tell your family, your friends, your neighbor, your colleague, maybe on FaceTime with somebody, it's like, hey, I'm about to connect to this webinar, make sure that, they can be part of that webinar as well and learn something new with that team of the United States Senate Federal Credit Union. I just want to give a special shout out to everybody that's on the attendee list. Thank you so much for being here with us. I hope you're, enjoying your holidays. I hope that Thanksgiving was good to you all. I know I ate too much. I made 4 stops on Thursday, and each stop I had to eat something, So I don't even know how I'm feeling that cut or sit right now as we speak, but we're happy. Once again, there is the holiday season. And as you can see on the screen, by the way, RMD ready. What to know before December 31st? You might wonder, what is RMD? Why do I need to be ready for on December 31st? Why are you giving me a deadline? So we're gonna go through all those details with our expert this evening. Once again, I want to emphasize that if you want to interact with us, if you want to write your questions, make sure you use the chat feature and or the Q&A. And Carrie, we haven't heard from you. What happens with every single question that we get this evening?
Well, that we are going to do our best to answer every single one of them. And if for some reason we can't address it live on the call, we'll definitely do our research and get right back to you.
That's right. Thank you so much for confirming that. We're going to try our best to get to all of them. I know sometimes when we're at the top of the hour, we still got questions coming in. And so we will always make sure that we follow up with those. And if you have a very specific question that perhaps we might not have, the complete answer to you, we're going to do our best to get that for you. And as I always say, they give me 2 minutes. Right now it's 6:03, it's the holiday season. So they were like, you know what, Eddie, you can take one more minute if you would like. I want to pass it on to our membership development analyst, Kim Fridley, with the introductions. Miss Kim, thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank you so much, Eddie, and panelist team, and welcome. We are so, like Eddie said, so happy that you are joining us this evening for this week's Wednesday webinar, RMD Ready, What to Know Before December 31st. I just want to say that we have a longtime member who recommended this webinar to the panelist team, and we are so grateful. If Ms. Lorraine is on this webinar this evening, we just want to say thank you so much. And we want to really encourage anyone that if you have recommendations, suggestions for these weekly Wednesday webinars, we would love to hear your feedback and your recommendations. So let me get everybody introduced so that we can get started. You already heard from Eddie and a little bit from Carrie. They're from our marketing team. We have our subject matter expert, Madison Love. She is our IRA manager. And I just can't say enough of how fortunate our credit union is to have Madison sitting in that IRA department seat. She has a wealth of knowledge. So don't forget, like Eddie said, please ask your questions. You can use the Q&A, you can use the chat feature. And again, thank you, Madison, so much for joining us this evening and presenting tonight. We greatly appreciate you. And take it away, girl.
Thank you so much. I am so happy to be here today. Yes, very grateful that this was a member shared topic. or member requested topic. I think that those are the best ones. That way we know exactly what you want to know. And if you have the question, other people probably have the question too. So the other little thing that I want to preface by saying is that RMDs have a lot of layers, and everybody has a different level of understanding. So even if I answer a question, if you still are confused about it, or just need to hear what I said again, there are no dumb questions. Just ask away, and I can go over things as many times as we need. So yeah, so let's get into it. So this is me, and I have been in the IRA world and banking and credit union and all the good things for about 10 years. And I've had a really fortunate path that focused a lot on education. So I'm really excited to be able to share that with you. Today, the things that we want to cover the most are understanding RMD basics, key deadlines and how to calculate your RMD, and then also helpful strategies and Q&A. So hopefully that's going to cover everything. I'm going to try very hard to make it, educational for every level, wherever you're at. So occasionally I might get a little in the weeds, and you can feel free to tune me out. And sometimes it might be too basic. So, but just make sure that you're coming back, because you never know what's going to stick out to you. So first, what is an RMD? So an RMD stands for required minimum distribution. We have a lot of acronyms in the IRA world. IRA is one itself. So required minimum distribution. And that is a mandatory yearly withdrawal. And so it's not for every IRA or retirement plan. It is only for traditional funds. So sometimes people get a little bit confused on that aspect of it. So just to go over that really quickly, whatever your retirement account is like the house that your retirement funds are living in, right? So whether it's an IRA, 401k, TSP, 403b, whatever the retirement vessel is, the house that it's living in, most of them offer a traditional version or a Roth version. That has not always been true. And it's not always true with like the company that you work for. The default is always going to be traditional. So sometimes we'll get a call and they say that I want to do something with my 401k, and I'll say, great, a traditional Roth. And people won't quite know how to, they'll say, I don't know, or whatever. And that's totally okay. If you're not sure, it's probably traditional, especially if it was through a job, especially if you started it when you were younger, things like that. Roth funds have only been around since 2008. And like I said, they started with IRAs and then they've been expanding. So also, if it's traditional is always the default. So if you have a 401k or whatever, and you're not sure if it was Roth or traditional, you would have had to go in and manually change it to Roth if your company even allowed that. So that would probably be something that you remember. So that's just a little helpful tip to know whether your funds are traditional or Roth. So, and so it doesn't, and anyway, and so then, so if the retirement account is the house that your funds live in, that's going to be, the house is going to be 401k, IRA, whatever. Then the people that live inside it, like, it's like boy or girl, right? Like Roth or traditional. So hopefully that analogy kind of clears that up. So when we talk about RMDs, that only applies to traditional funds. So if half of your 401k is Roth and half of it's traditional, the RMD is only based on what is traditional funds. Same thing in an IRA. It doesn't matter how many you have, where they are. If it's traditional, it's going to have an RMD mandatory situation once you obtain the age of 73 or older. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to calculate your RMDs and things like that. Just forget about your Roths. You've already paid taxes on those. So okay, and then the current age requirement for an RMD. So when you are starting to be required to take these distributions, currently is at age 73. This changes occasionally. So it was 72 for a while. It just went up to 73. It's most likely going to go up again. As life expectancies expand and lengthen, so does this. So this doesn't change often, but the rumor is 75 by 2033. So if you are just extra prepared and you're kind of far off from that retirement or from that RMD age, then you might have a few extra years. But as of right now, and for 2026, the foreseeable future, it's at 73. Yeah. Okay, so why do RMDs matter? So they are required by the IRS. The reason that the IRS wants to start requiring you to take distributions of traditional funds is because they have not been taxed yet. Your Roth funds get taxed right away because you put in taxed dollars and then everything you take out is tax-free. That is not the situation with your traditional funds. When you put your traditional funds in, then you get a tax break right then. And you don't have to pay taxes on your traditional funds when you deposit them. So that means that when you take out your traditional funds from your retirement plans, you at that point are going to have to pay taxes. They count as just normal income. So you get taxed at your normal income rate when you remove traditional funds from your retirement account. So because they are tax deferred, the IRS wants you to start, it's a delicate balance of they want you to start removing that money so it can be taxed, but they want to make sure that you have enough to live on. And so we'll get a little bit more into that balance and that juggling a little bit later. But and then it also is going to impact your yearly taxable income. So like I mentioned just a second ago, when you take out traditional funds, that becomes, your adjusted gross income for the year. And so one of the big benefits of saving money in a traditional retirement account is that ideally when you're working, you're making more money and you have more money coming in and you want to be in those lower tax brackets. And this is a way to kind of get you lower. And then when you're retired, you're not bringing in as much money, especially not that's taxable. And so you should be in a lower tax bracket when you're paying your taxes on that income. And that's where a lot of your savings comes from. And so when you start having to remove funds for your RMD, for your required minimum distribution, then you're going to keep in mind that you're going to need to pay taxes on it. And your qualified tax advisor is going to help with all of that. And then if you don't do them by the right date, and we're going to get way more into that, then you can be penalized. So if you decide, I don't want to take out my money, I don't need it, I'm just going to leave it in, you are going to be penalized 25%. If you catch it quickly, then they'll only penalize you 10%. If you miss these deadlines. It used to be 50%. So this was a big deal when this changed. I think it only changed a couple years ago. And so this was a massive benefit, right? You might be asking yourself, what is quickly? We were all asking that too when it first came out. And the IRS has since defined that as 2 years. So if you are 75 and you realize, well, I have not started taking out my RMDs yet, you can go back and correct that and take those funds out, and you'll only be penalized 10% instead of the 25 that you were getting hit with. And then if it's been 5 years, then you'll pay the 25% on the 3 years and then 10% on the most recent 2. So, and I'm not a tax advisor. So you are going to want to verify that information with a qualified tax advisor. If you have missed your deadline, you're going to want to talk to your tax advisor about how to correct it, and then and go from there and do what they say. And then just another little tip is that USSFCU does not charge CD penalties when satisfying your RMD. So if you are in the position where you need to pay or take out your RMD, however, everything is tied up in CDs, that's okay. We are going to take out, just enough for it to satisfy that RMD, and you won't be penalized on any of that. A lot of institutions do that, not all of them. So if you find yourself in a situation where you have an IRA with us, and you have an IRA at Fidelity, and you have an IRA at, Bank of America or whatever, however many IRAs you have, or 401ks or anything like that, just know that most of us will waive those penalties. And then if you have somebody that doesn't, well, I have a tip and trick for you for that later as well. So, but that's a question that's worth asking of anywhere that you're taking out an RMD from is you can ask, will you waive the CD penalties? And I can guarantee that United States Senate Federal Credit Union has your back and will absolutely waive that fee for you. So let's talk about deadlines and dates because that part can get a little tricky, a little hairy. So your RMD begins the year that you turn 73. Okay, so if you is I don't know, November of 1952, then your RMD starts in 2025. So you can take that RMD at any time in the year of 2025. You don't have to be 73 quite yet. And it'll count towards satisfying your RMD. Your first RMD has a one-time deferral date. So if your birthday is in November of 1952, you have until April 1st of 2026 to take that first RMD. And it's really important that you remember April 1st, not April 15th. All of our other deadlines are end of year or April 15th or whatever the tax deadline is. And it's April 1st. And it's a weird date. So April 1st. The next year, let's say you take advantage of that benefit. Let's say that you don't take it out until March of 2026. The next year, you will need to take your RMD by December 31st. It goes back to the calendar year. So you can only take advantage of that once. It helps a lot of people because they will not realize that they need to start taking their RMD at 73. They'll go and take care of their taxes, and their tax advisor or their accountant says, oh, you didn't take your RMD. And this saves you from that first time. If you do it, before April 1st, you're not going to get penalized. And then after that, it's always December 31st. If you want to be ahead of the curve, do it before December 31st. And if you want to be really kind to your IRA team, the closer to the beginning of December, the better. We definitely get really busy and bombarded closer to any deadline, any IRA deadline. We definitely have a lot more on our plates. So, but absolutely, if you don't need it and you're wanting it to earn as much as you can, that's a great way to make sure that you're getting as much as you can out of your earnings, is keeping it until closer to the deadline. So those are the deadlines. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how to calculate your RMD. There are a lot of ways to get your RMD calculated. And so the easiest one is just to let your financial institution do it. We calculate so your RMD is calculated based off of the fair market value. The fair market value is whatever your balance was the last day of the year. From the previous year. So if the last day of 2024, you had $100,000 in your account, then we're going to calculate your RMD on $100,000. Even if the next day you contributed an extra $5, right? That happened on January 2nd, it does not count in your RMD. So it's not about your current balance, it's about your balance that was the last day of the last year. And so every single one of your financial institutions, again, if you have an IRA at Fidelity and you have an IRA with us, we're going to calculate based on the information that we have, and they're going to calculate based on the information they have. If you call me up and you say, Madison, I also have an RMD over at Fidelity, can you calculate it for me? I cannot officially do that. I can utilize some of these other tools that I'm going to share with you, but the most accurate way to do it is just to call up your financial institution. You will also get you'll also get an RMD statement when you get your form 5498, if you are of RMD age. So your form 5498, that is going to list all of your contributions that you made the prior year. It's going to list your fair market value, so how much your IRA was worth at the last day of the year. And it's going, if you're of RMD age, it's going to have your RMD statement. And that's also going to say how much you need to take out. You do not get that until about May. The reason you get it so late in the year is because you are still able to make contributions up until the tax deadline in April. After that cutoff, we have to report to the IRS, and then we're able to let you know where it's at. So if you want that information, if you want to know what your RMD is going to be before May, then you are welcome to call us. We will not have it until after January 31st. We can, again, do some of these other resources I'm going to talk to you about to kind of give you a good estimate, a strong estimate. But we officially get that information on around January 31st. And that's because that's how long it takes us to report and get information to the IRS and for the IRS to get back to us. So that was a lot of information to basically just, if I could sum it up for you real simple, is call us. If you want to know what your RMD is, call us, or email us, or however you want to communicate with us, we can get that information to you. Another tool that you can use, especially if you have multiple IRAs and you're trying to figure out how much you need to take out, is that they're on the internet. There's just really good online RMD calculators. There's a couple of factors that go into figuring and calculating your RMD, and those online calculators will ask you that. So if you go to an online calculator, honestly, calculator.net has a very good one. And you're just going to put in your birth year, what year it currently is, what your balance was as of 12/31, whatever the prior year was. It's going to ask you if your spouse is the primary beneficiary. It's going to ask you your spouse's date of birth. The reason that it's talking about your spouse is that's going to determine how much they're going to calculate your RMD with. And we're going to get into that in the next couple of slides. So, and then it's going to ask you if you're, a rough estimate of the rate of return. That's optional. If you put that in, it just calculates it for future years. And so just have the information ready. You can go online, you can calculate it. It's a great checking tool. Especially if you're talking to me and you're like, that doesn't sound quite right, we can always check it with an online calculator just to see what it comes up with. Another option is to talk to a qualified tax advisor, especially if you have multiple. They're going to ask you for those RMD statements. They'll gather everything together and they'll tell you how much you need. So it never hurts to use multiple resources. I'm never going to be offended if you want to talk to me and a financial advisor or a qualified tax advisor. I can't tell you how many calls I've had with a member and their tax advisor. That is super, super normal. We're always happy to talk to anybody that you need us to talk to and make sure that everybody's on the same page, because ultimately your RMD calculations, what you owe and the responsibility of paying it is all on you, because you're the only one who can get all of the information, right? So it's always good to verify. But I will say our systems are very, very strong. If you call us and you get, what your RMD is, you can absolutely trust that. So let's talk about the RMD formula. This is how we are calculating the exact amount. And it's simple. It's the account balance as of December 31st of the prior year divided by the life expectancy factor. Into the weeds on the life expectancy factor. So if what you needed to hear was, in order to figure out my RMD, I just need to call my financial institution, great. If you want to nerd out with me a little bit and get into the weeds, this section is for you. So there are 3 life expectancy tables that you get to determine which one is right for you. And by you get to, I mean that your life situation is going to force you into. So the first one is the single life table. And this is only used if you are a beneficiary to an IRA. Once an RMD has been taken from an RMD, that is a train that cannot stop. So if you have been taking out RMDs for 8 years and then you pass away and your beneficiary takes over the IRA, they are still subject to taking out a RMD. So that's a really important thing to note. So This table isn't used a ton because other beneficiary rules still apply. And and all beneficiaries are kind of their own ball of wax. But if you are somebody who inherits an IRA that has of somebody who's over the age of 73, you are still expected to take life or to take RMDs out. So if that's your situation and you qualify for the single life table, that's what you would use it for. The next one is joint and last survivor table. This is table type 2. And this you're going to use if your spouse is your sole beneficiary and they are more than 10 years younger than you. So I talked a little bit earlier about how they're trying to balance depleting the account so it can be taxed and also making sure that you have enough money to live on. That also extends to your spouse. Spouses, when people are saving for retirement, they're thinking about their spouse as well. And so if your spouse is more than 10 years younger than you, obviously they're most likely going to have a longer life expectancy. And so in order to accommodate that, this table is a little bit kinder. And now, if let's say that my husband is 15 years younger than me, and also I have children, and I want to divide. I have 2 children. I want to divide my assets, my retirement accounts amongst the 3 of them. It does not matter that my husband is more than 10 years younger than me because I included my children as primary beneficiaries. So because I'm including them, it voids the benefit that we would get from him being more than 10 years younger. Now, if my husband is 5 years younger than me, and I want to include him and my children, it doesn't matter. There was no extra benefit. So that's fine. So that brings us to the uniformed lifetime table. This is the most common by a lot. So if you're struggling with, which table do I fall under, you most likely fall under the uniform life table. And this is if your spouse is not your sole beneficiary and they're 10 years younger. This is if you have 6 people as your beneficiary. This is if you have a trust as your beneficiary. This is if you have a charity as your beneficiary. Whatever, the beneficiary matters less on this one. This is the catch-all. So this is the one that most people use. So just to go over an example with you, if I'm using the RMD formula here, let's say I'm using the uniform life table, because most of us would be, let's say I'm 75, and you're going to want to, if you're manually calculating it, you're going to want to look up the lifetime or the tables on the IRS website. They change periodically, and so you would want to go to the IRS website. Their section on RMDs is very good. So if you ever are just trying to remember things or look for a strong resource for RMDs, the IRS website is very, very good. It's well organized and they get into the nitty gritty, but also it's pretty easy to find what you need. So, but let's say, back to my example, let's say I'm 75 years old. I am using the uniform life table. What on the lifetime table, you can go look it up. The distribution period or the life expectancy factor is 24.6. So if I would take, let's say I have $100,000 in my retirement account, then I would take $100,000 divided by 24.6, and that would mean that my RMD is $4,065.04. As you get older, that life expectancy factor gets smaller. So you're dividing it by less, which means you're taking bigger and bigger portions. Because again, they're wanting to deplete that account. Once you hit 120, they're making you divide it by 2, and you have to take half of whatever's left every single year. I would hope all of us make it to 120. That would be great. And but you're going to go through your retirement funds really, really fast at that age. So how do you remove your IRA? Or sorry, your RMD. We don't want you to remove your IRA. We want you to keep your IRA. So how do you remove your RMD? You are going to choose which accounts to draw from. What that means is that, let's say you have an IRA with us, with the United States Senate Federal Credit Union, and you have 5 different CDs. When I tell you that your RMD is $4,065.04, you do not need to divide that amongst those CDs. You can, but you can just take it all from one. Or if you have money in a savings account, you can just take it from that. Another thing to consider is that you do not have to take your portion from every institution. So from me, you need to take out 4,000. From Fidelity, you need to take out 5,000. But you're getting a better interest rate with United States Senate Federal Credit Union. You can absolutely call up Fidelity and say, I want to take out 9,000. And that'll satisfy your RMD with us as well. We won't know about it, but we don't need to know about it, because the government views all of your IRAs as one. Okay. So they don't care which accounts you're taking it out of. The point is that they want you to pay or take out your full RMD. So they don't care how or where or when you do that. You have a lot of flexibility with that. They just want you to do it by the end of the year. You do get that little extension your first year, but generally they just want you to take it out by the end of the year. And they don't care from where, they don't care, like how often, nothing like that. So you can also say, so if I say that your RMD is 4,000 with me and it's 5,000 over at Fidelity, you can take 2,000 at USSFCU, and then you can take 7,000 from Fidelity. Like, that's also fine. Again, however you want to do it is fine. One of the reasons that that's really beneficial is because if you are, it's beneficial for a few reasons. If you are getting a really good rate, or one of your investments is doing really, really well and you don't want to touch it, you don't have to if you have money elsewhere. The other reason is that some people have alternative investments, like they might own a rental property in their IRA, and it's really difficult to take an RMD from a physical asset. But if you have enough cash in another institution, then you can take it all out from there. So it's a really nice benefit. With distribution, it doesn't matter and all that other stuff. Some people like to receive a monthly paycheck, if you will, and that's great. Quarterly, semi-annually, annually, it doesn't matter. You can also set it up automatically or manually. So we love it when you set it up automatically, because it makes our job really, really easy. You only have to fill out one form. We will follow it at whatever pace you set. But if you want to do it manually, that's totally fine. You just need to fill out a distribution form and we'll take care of the rest. Every single dollar you take out after you are of RMD age, first and foremost goes to satisfying your RMD. So if you are like not even realizing that you need to take out your RMD, but you just need $5,000 to live on, then you can take that $5,000, whether you said it was for your RMD or not. We are considering it part of your RMD if it has one. You are also welcome to take more than your RMD. It's your money. Use it, like live off of it, enjoy your life. You worked so hard for that. So, you don't have to just take out your RMD, but we always recommend that you take out at least your RMD. So there are, and I talked about this a little bit before, but we're going to hit it again. There are no exceptions to being able to get out of taking an RMD as far as like not getting penalized. Like, obviously you can choose to leave it in if you are comfortable with the penalties. But I have not heard of investment that's making more than 25%. So it's usually not financially beneficial. So, but again, once your beneficiaries take over the RMD, if you've started that, or take over the IRA and you've started RMDs, they will need to continue that. There is also not a deferral for employment. So it used to be that you could not contribute to your IRA after a certain age, and that's gone away. If you have earned income, you can still contribute. So if you are 80 years old and you have a part-time job or a full-time job or whatever, you can still contribute to your IRA up to the contribution limits and up to your income limit. So if you only earn $5,000, it doesn't matter what the contribution limit is, you can only contribute 5,000, right? And so that used to be like you couldn't do that. If you were having earned income in your 80s or you know, in your 70s or whatever, however old you were, then you could not still make contributions. You now can. However, that does not stop you from needing to take out your RMD. So let's say I work, actually, I have a really fun story. So I grew up and we had some really good family friends, and the dad was a dentist, and he was a great dentist, and he had this sweetest mom. We loved her. And she just needed to get out of the house. She just needed an excuse to get out of the house every day. And she wanted to see her son. He was an only child. And so he hired her as a receptionist at his dental office. And I think she only worked 2 hours a day. We would always schedule to go first thing in the morning because we wanted to see her. And I think she only worked the first 2 hours of the day. And I think she only made like minimum wage. He didn't pay her a lot because she didn't need it, right? But it was just an excuse to go, and it gave him the opportunity to put her on the books. And she didn't have to work Fridays because, you know, dentists don't work Fridays. And it was a really good gig for all of them. And so at the end of the year, she would have made just a little bit of money. And I don't know that much about her finances because I was a child and I was not super into IRAs at, you know, 10. But if she could theoretically, she was definitely in her 80s. She definitely could have, well, now she could contribute her paychecks or part of her paychecks to her IRA. But let's say she needs to take out $8,000 for her RMD, she will still need to satisfy that. So hopefully that makes sense. And then strategies for managing your IRAs. So we want to talk about this because I get a lot of people who are fortunate enough and have worked hard enough and planned hard enough and got lucky enough that they just don't need the money in maybe all of their accounts. And so I get asked occasionally, you know, what do I do if I don't need the funds? Or I have also been, you know, informed that somebody is going to live, you know, another 80 years. And so they don't want to take out the money because they're planning on living a much longer life than what the government is expecting, which they might. It's amazing what technology and healthcare and a good diet and joy and all the things can do to add to a great life. So, and those are all fair concerns. So we're going to talk about a couple strategies with your RMD to help deal with those in a couple of situations. So one is obviously that you can use your RMD. You can use it like as a paycheck. You can use it. You can also use it like save it. You don't necessarily like if you're taking it out of your IRA CD, you can go and put it in another CD. Or if you're taking it out of stocks, you can go and put it in other stocks. It just won't be under the retirement umbrella. Excuse me. So, and then it's there for you if something else pops up. My parents are getting really close to retirement, and my dad is really nervous about like, what if he dies and my mom lives another 30 years? Like my mom was a stay-at-home mom for most of my life. And so he's very worried because her like Social Security isn't as high and she doesn't have a pension and things like that. And so I told them, just don't remove anything from your 401ks and IRAs. And then when, you know, if you do pass, if my dad does pass away first, my mom can utilize those things. And she might be forced to anyway, because I know a lot of their funds are in traditional IRAs. So, and so you can save it for a rainy day. You can use it. Things change. Even in retirement, things can change. So having it there is a good thing. The other thing that you can do is you can continue to make contributions as long as you're eligible. That goes back to my dentist and his mother. You can absolutely do that. You can, if you are in a situation where you need to take out $20,000 for your RMD and you just really, really don't want to, you can mitigate some of that by getting a part-time job and putting money in, right? Like, and obviously, you know, you probably don't need the money that you're earning either, but it's a strategy. And then this one takes a little bit more planning, but you can also consider a Roth conversion before you hit RMD age. We recently, just like a month or two ago, had a really great Wednesday webinar from Michael Schimmel. And he went into Roth conversions in great detail. You can find that on the USSFCU website, where you're going to be able to find this presentation as well. And it was really, really good. And I'll give you Michael's information in a little bit, but He is excellent for figuring out if a Roth conversion is financially worth it for you. And factoring in RMDs is absolutely, part of that equation. So, but especially if you're younger, especially if you have a lot of years to live, when my dad was 60, I still told him to get a Roth because he didn't need to save anymore, but he still was able to. And that gave him 30 years of being able to let that grow. He won't ever have to take from it. So it's great for inheritance for future generations. So that's a good option too. Another great resource is charitable giving. Yesterday was Giving Tuesday. And I just think that all the many ways that people are able to donate and make our world a better place are so valuable and worth talking about. So in the IRA world, we have a very specific process for this to help you with avoiding some taxes. So you can do a qualified charitable distribution. And you can go up to 108,000. You don't have to wait until your RMD to do this benefit. It is typically only done with traditional. You technically can do it with a Roth. You just don't need the tax benefit. So it doesn't, all of the specific paperwork doesn't matter. But of course you can always give if you're able to, if you're in that situation. So but you can give up to $108,000 per year. So if your RMD is really large and you just don't quite know what to do with that money, you are welcome to give it. It's really important that you fill out a qualified charitable distribution form with your financial institution. I know at United States Senate Federal Credit Union, only the IRA department handles that. So if you call in and you're talking to our wonderful MSRs on the phone, or you come into the branch, they are going to refer you to us on this one because it's really important it's done right so you can get that tax benefit. What we'll do is after you fill out that form, we will mark it as a qualified charitable distribution. It's going to show up on your 1099-R. 1099-Rs are the tax form that talks about any distributions you took in the year. And then you need to make sure that you get a receipt from the organization. And then those two together are going to be the proof that you need to get that tax benefit. So it does need to be a qualified charity. So your church is most like anybody that's like taxes exempt is kind of a good idea. Now, again, I'm not a tax advisor, so I'm not specifically guaranteeing that your church is part of this, but generally churches, like the Humane Society, I'm now like only thinking about like private organizations. But anybody who is tax exempt for their charitable organization. So the world really is your oyster. There's, a charity for every cause out there. So great benefit of if you don't need your RMD. And then the other thing is that you can give it to your beneficiaries early. Your beneficiaries can, or anybody that you want to give money to can have up to $19,000 without having to pay taxes on it. It falls under that gift tax exemption. So, and that's per person. So for instance, I'm married, I have 2 children. If my parents wanted to give me $19,000, I would absolutely say thank you and accept it. And they could also give that to my husband, and they could also give each, to each of my children, and that would be fine. Now, you don't have to do that full amount. You can do 10,000 to all 4 of us, and that would be great too. So, but you'll still have to pay taxes on the distribution like you would no matter what, but this way your beneficiaries don't have to pay any taxes as long as you stay under that limit. And you can do that for years, right? If you're wanting to deplete it. So, and then you get to watch your children and beneficiaries enjoy the funds. So, and then the next is, beneficiary optimization. This is a very personal strategy, and I would highly recommend discussing it with a financial advisor instead of like generally. But essentially, you can name younger beneficiaries to stretch out those payoffs. When we were discussing those lifetime tables, the first one for beneficiaries is the most generous because theoretically, if you're leaving it to your child and your child is 5, they obviously have a lot longer to live. And so that can kind of stretch it out. And then You can also use trusts as beneficiaries. That's one of my favorite life hacks in general. I don't even know if you can call it a life hack, but I really think trust beneficiaries are absolutely the way to go. They're really nice because if you want to make a change, you just change the trust, and then all of your accounts, all of your beneficiaries are updated, right? So, yeah. So anyway, so sometimes those can, and again, like if you have, this is the one area that I'm saying, if you have questions on this strategy in particular, you're going to want to talk to a tax advisor. You're going to want to talk to Michael, who is our financial advisor at Fellows, and they can kind of go into all of that in a lot more detail and make a plan for you specifically. So key takeaways, please be aware of your RMD deadlines. Nothing is worse than having to pay taxes on your hard-earned money and penalties. So don't do it. Be aware of your tax deadlines, see which ones apply to you and where you are. And yeah, and then know your calculation resources. If something feels off, do the research. We want to make sure that you're comfortable and stuff. So, but you can always call us. That is the most secure, most regulated resource. And then understand how to use your RMD. So hopefully you had some interesting tips there. If you need it, absolutely use it. Live the lifestyle that you have worked so hard to live. Enjoy your retirement, live well. And then also if, whatever other strategies that is going to work for your specific situation. And then we always recommend consulting a financial advisor or personal guidance. Again, I know I've said this before, but I'm not a tax advisor. And so I can't legally give tax advice. So none of this has been tax advice, but they can. So, and here is ours, and you guys are so lucky because he's the very best one. This is a free service for you, and everybody should have a financial advisor, in my opinion. They generally are a free resource for you. You can use that link and ask and set up a meeting with him. He can go over your entire financial portfolio, no matter what stage you're at. And make sure that you are set up for the best situation. And like I said, even he did the Roth conversion. I know he's done other financial planning and things specifically related to retirement accounts with United States Senate Federal Credit Union on these Wednesday webinars. So just a really great resource. Even if you're not ready to talk to him directly, looking at some of the presentations that he's done, you can also look at some of the presentations that I've done and that other IRA people have done. And that's always available to you. Another really great resource for you is Retirement Central. This is a good place for you to go. It kind of has three parts. One, you can absolutely communicate with the IRA department and request transactions, things like that. You can request for distributions via this site, things like that. And we get that. We get those messages. You can also, there's also an education component to it. So if you are needing more information on IRAs in general, this is a great resource for you. And it also has planning tools so that you can, make sure that you're on the right track for your goals. So good resource there. This is my information. This is another way to get to Michael. And then that link for Retirement Central. We'll come back to this page, but these are all really good resources. And then this is just our little disclaimer. We always want you to get the best information possible. I always encourage you to seek multiple opinions. The more you know, the more you can do, the more you can grow, the more you can gain. So anyway, that is what I have so far, and I'm ready for questions.
We appreciate you, Madison. Every time you do a presentation, we walk away with more knowledge that we came in with. So thank you so much for doing that. I love when you add like your little life experiences, and we can see how you have used, these type of, benefits, or how you have, make some movements in your personal life, or people that just like the doctor you were mentioning. So thank you very much for adding that personal touch, just to show the audience that here at the United States Senate Federal Credit Union, what does Kim Freely says all the time is people helping people. That's right. That's the reason why you always add the little, stories, so you can see that we're humans. We're no AI. You pinch me, I'm gonna scream. We're those regular people trying to make it out here, just like you all. But that's the reason why we do these presentations, so that way you can, feel more comfortable when it comes to your IRAs, to your RMDs, or any specific information that you would like us to present as well. And we do have a lot of questions, so I just want to say thank you so much for everybody that participated. So I think we should get started with the questions. And the first question is, after you retire, can you convert traditional to Roth? What is Roth Advantage?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you absolutely can. You can convert it anytime. You just need to make sure that that's financially lucrative for you. So the Roth Advantage is that you put in taxed dollars and then your earnings grow. And then when you remove the funds, you do not have to pay taxes, which means all of your earnings don't ever get taxed if you do it right. If you take money early and things, you can mess it up. But if you are following all the rules, those earnings never get taxed. So, for example, if I contribute to my traditional IRA, I am in my 30s, and I'm going to get a small tax benefit now. And I say small because I can contribute up to, $7,000. That's going up next year. And I can, so I won't have to pay whatever tax bracket I'm in. I won't have to pay that level of taxes on that amount of money. And so it's a good benefit. I'm not knocking traditionals in any way, shape, or form, but because I'm in my 30s, I have at least 30 more years for that to grow. So let's say that I save $600, which is great, by not having to pay taxes on that $6,000 so I guess it'd be 700. So on that 700 or 7,000 that I contributed, I get to save $7,000 this year. But ideally over 30 years, maybe that 7,000 is now worth 20,000, right? And then when I take that money out, I only paid taxes on 7,000 of it. And the remaining balance, I don't ever have to pay taxes on. So if you have time on your side, Roth is a huge advantage. So another example is that I worked for a company that did not offer Roth for their 401k, which is totally fine. You should still be contributing, especially if you have your company match. But I wasn't there for a super long time. So then when I left that job, I was able to access those funds, and I converted them to Roth. And so I did have to pay taxes because I essentially took them out of their traditional status and then made them taxed dollars. So I had to pay taxes on it, but it was a year that I didn't make very much money. I think I was in college. I wasn't making very much money. I wasn't worried about being in a higher tax bracket, things like that. I converted it. I paid the taxes that were due. And then now I have, ideally 40 years for those earnings to grow tax-free. So I paid a teensy bit now, and I'll gain a lot later. And so now if you are already retired, you're probably in a lower tax bracket. So it's going to be less likely that you're going to have long enough for the earnings to overcome the taxes that you'd have to pay. So it's not impossible by any means. And like I said, Michael did a really good presentation on this, and he can help you calculate it, and he'll tell you if it's not worth it, because it doesn't benefit or hurt him either way, right? And so if that is something that you're considering, you can absolutely convert in retirement. But I would just really encourage you to talk to a tax advisor, because it's really up in the air about whether or not that would benefit you or not. But if it would benefit you, it's a great tool.
All right. Thank you so much for that answer. I would really appreciate it. I hope that the person the asked the question, they're satisfied with, the answer that they got. And you got the best answer you can get. Madison knows it all from A to Z, from Z to A, backwards as well. She knows everything when it comes to IRAs. Now, I know that you mentioned a little bit and you touched on the topic of shareable distributions, Madison. Does that affect the RMD at all? Or is there any consequences, or is there some type of tricks, if you want to call it?
Yeah, so if you can take out, so like I think I mentioned this briefly, so I'm really glad we're bringing this up again because I really want to communicate it. Anything after you are RMD age, any dollar that you remove from your account is going to satisfy your RMD, whether it is for a charitable distribution or just like a normal distribution or specifically part of like your RMD automatic withdrawal, whatever, however it's like labeled to you, it will always satisfy your RMD first. So if you're doing a charitable distribution, it's a killer strategy for not having, because you get that tax benefit because you don't have to pay taxes up to $180,000, which is a big benefit because then that's money that you never had to pay taxes on ever. Now, of course, you don't get to use it, but you get the joy of giving. So absolutely, you can use a charitable distribution, a qualified charitable distribution to satisfy your RMD. It's one of the main reasons it exists, actually.
All right, thank you so much. And as you know, you gotta read those like fine print, if you want to call it, with those specific information as Madison was sharing with us. I'm sorry. So thank you so much. All right, Carrie, it's your time to shine. What questions do you have on your end?
All right, Madison, what happens with my RMD if I die before the age of 73?
So if you're before the age of 73, you never had to take your RMD. You don't have one. It never existed, which is great. So your beneficiaries would just follow. So there's different rules for different beneficiaries based on their relationship to you. And that's definitely a big ball of wax that could probably have its own webinar. So if that train hasn't left the station yet, and you pass away before it never leaves the station. So it would just be given to your beneficiaries, and they would need to follow their beneficiary rules and to utilize that money in the way that they want to.
Can you go, is a TSP the same as a 401k?
So yes, kind of. Not, let me back up here. At the beginning, I talked about having that house, right? So if you're putting all of your retirement money in a house or in multiple houses, maybe you have multiple like street, you have a whole neighborhood, right? A TSP is one of those houses. A 401k is another type of house. It's like a cottage core house versus a modern house. Okay, that one's not better or worse than the other. It's just what you have available to you. So a TSP, a 401k, an IRA, a 403b, it doesn't matter what the house is called. It matters what type of funds live in that house. So if you have a TSP and your funds are traditional in it, which most of the time they are, TSPs have just started kind of doing Roth options. So if your funds in your TSP are traditional, then you're going to be subject to an RMD at age 73.
And Eddie, I'm sorry if you already asked this one, but I can't recall if you did. But what counts as a qualified tax account?
So I think you mean qualified charitable distribution, and that is just a charity that is like tax exempt is the easiest way for me to define it. If you're worried about it, you can call that charity and ask them if they are if they accept, like if they're good for qualified charitable distributions. I know that a lot of people will pay their tithing with their RMD. So like most churches are, I know like any big organization that's like asking for funds, and it doesn't have to be big. You just need to make sure you're doing your due diligence if it's smaller. As long as they're like registered as a charity and they are getting that tax exempt status, then it typically counts.
Thank you, Madison. If I turn 74 in December, do I need to take my first RMD before my birthday, or by December 31st?
So if you're 74, you've already missed your first one, in which case, the sooner the better you can take it out. Now, if you're 73 and it's your first year to get one, then and your birthday's in December, you can take it, like, let's say your birthday's in December of 2025 and you're turning 73 in 2025, you could take it as early as January and it would still satisfy. But and then you would have until, for your first year, you would have until April 1st. But technically, like, the end of the year would be like, you could take it through the end of the year. So if you are 74, you took yours last year, it doesn't matter if your birthday is in December or March or February, it doesn't matter as long as you take it out during that calendar year.
So, Madison, what if you don't retire until age 80? Do you need to make up the RMDs back from age 73?
So you are welcome to retire at whatever age you want, but your RMD starts at 73 no matter what. So it's not about making it up. I mean, as much as it is, you start at 73. So if, let's say, you've been working and you didn't realize that you were supposed to take out your RMD, yes, I would encourage you to make it up. But ideally, you attended this webinar and you're not quite 80 yet. And you can absolutely, you're still going to need to start at 73.
The IRS doesn't notify people that it's time to start their RMDs.
I don't know. That's a great question. I'm not 100% sure if the IRS does. I know we do. So your financial institution should be reaching out to you.
Oh, okay. Because I know when I want money, I phone. Okay, I'll do one more, Eddie, and then I'll let you go. So what are some circumstances where traditional or tax-deferred retirement accounts still make sense? I don't know if you can answer that one now or you want to later.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And there's so many resources on it. If you want like more information, like any education on traditional versus Roth is going to go into that in great detail. So the best time to use a traditional IRA is if you are like at the height of your career, you're making the most money you're going to make, you want to get in lower tax brackets, you're planning on retiring somewhat soon, and you're going to want to utilize that money to live on. Traditional is a great resource. The other time that a traditional makes sense is if you already have traditional funds, it's not lucrative to convert them, but you want to get them in a different investment, you have to have like funds go to like funds. So if you have like left a job and you have a TSP or a 401k and you want to move that into an IRA because it offers different investment options, but you don't want to convert the funds, you have to move it into another traditional. So, but mainly it's, if you are wanting to save money now, another like reason would be like, if I need to save $600 in my taxes because like I don't want to owe, or $700 in my taxes because I don't want to owe, that's another really great resource, is that you can contribute to your IRA instead. You get to keep that money and then you get that tax benefit this year. So if you need kind of like a shorter term fix, a traditional would make sense. Again, I'm not a tax advisor. So if you think that you're in a situation where it might be better to do traditional and you want to run it by somebody, I mean, I'm happy to chat in general about, IRAs, but if you want specific tax advice, you'd want to talk to Michael or a qualified tax advisor. But if you want my completely biased opinion, typically I do think for the majority of people, a Roth IRA tends to be better. Oh, also, sorry, one other factor in that. A Roth IRA has a maximum income limit. There are like ways around it. But the ways around it don't always give you the most tax benefit. But it does have a maximum income. So if you make more money than what that income limit changes every year, I think it's like just over 200,000. But that's a really easy thing to Google or to look at the IRS website. But if you make over that, then it's harder to have a Roth. Like you can own a Roth, it's harder to contribute. So that's another good opportunity to still get tax benefits and use that traditional IRA.
Shout outs to you, Madison, because we can tell the passion that you have when you're answering these questions. I know that's the reason why you changed your last name to Love. So you're not being slick, but I'm
Yeah,
just giving it a hard
I was
time.
just thinking, how much I love IRAs and I want to convey that with my name. And I found a guy that had the last name Love
There
and
you
I
go.
matched it
See,
up.
it was, you saw the bigger picture and you knew that you were going to
Yes,
do these webinars with us.
indeed.
All right, Miss Kim, and I know you want to be eager to ask some questions, so I'm gonna pass the mic to you as well.
Well, thank you, Eddie and Carrie. Carrie went so quick through those. I hope I'm at the right place. Great job, Carrie and Eddie. And I just want to say thank you so much for asking these excellent questions. The more prepared we are, the better our retirement will go. And I do have a question. So here's the question, Madison. All those dates are confusing. May of which year?
Yeah, they are so confusing. Believe me, that's a huge complaint I have. Okay, so you will get the May date is for the 5498. So kind of to give you a bigger picture. If you are trying to figure out how much your RMD is going to be, there are various points where you can obtain that information. And so the first date that you would want to remember in order to figure out how much you need to take to satisfy your RMD is the end of January. At the end of January, you can call up any of your financial institutions and say, hey, what's my RMD for this year? And we'll be able to tell you. If you don't want to call us, which I get, I will not take it personally. I don't like calling people either. Then you can wait until the middle of May and you'll get a form 5498. And in that form, it's a tax document. You're going to want to save it. And it's going to have your fair market value. It's going to have any contributions you made listed that year. And it's going to have your RMD statement. And on that statement, it's going to say how much you need. Another little trick that if you are confused by all these dates and you don't want to deal with it, make me deal with it. You can set up an automatic, not only can you set up like automatic distributions, you can just say, hey, I want my minimum RMD. I don't want to take anything extra. Or you can say, hey, my RMD is generally around 5,000. Just give me 6. And we will follow those rules too. So I would say the majority of our members, especially the ones that are set up on automatic RMD distributions, they just have listed, like let's say they want the monthly, then they'll say, I want my minimum RMD and I want it to be distributed monthly, or I want my minimum RMD and I want it distributed annually. And then it doesn't matter that it changes every year. We just follow what's required, what the minimum amount required is. So you don't actually have to get that hung up on dates if you're willing to set up an automatic distribution.
Great answer. Thank you so much. Excellent question. Excellent answer, Madison. I'm not sure if we answered this one or not, so just let me know if we did and I'll move to another one. But what happens with my RMD if I die before the age of 73?
I think we did answer it, but just to reiterate, if you pass away before that RMD kicks in, it never kicks in. If the train leaves the station, it doesn't stop. If it doesn't leave the station, it doesn't start. So your beneficiaries would not need to worry about RMD if you pass away before RMD age.
Thank you so much. And yes, Madison's slides will be shared with everyone. You'll get that in an email. Our amazing expert content creator, Carrie, will be sending those out to everyone. So did we answer this question? As far as RMDs go, is it the age divided by life expectancy gives you the RMD amount? This person just kind of got lost on that part.
No
Did
worries,
we answer
no
that
worries.
question?
We did. I have not gotten that question yet.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, the calculation. I just want to make sure that I get it right. Okay, oh, you know what? I have the slides, guys. We can just go back. Okay, whoop, there it was. Okay, so it's the amount of that your IRA was worth as of December 31st from the prior year. So on the last day of year, we notate the balance of your retirement account, and it's that amount divided by your life expectancy factor. So whatever life table you belong to, if you go to your age, and again, look at the IRS website if you want to see the table, they're very clear. But like you would go to whatever age you are, whether it's 75 or 102, and there'll be a number next to that age. So if my balance as of December 31st of 2024 was $200,000 and I am 73, and then I can go and I can look at my life expectancy table, it'll provide a number, and I would divide $200,000 by that number, and that's what my RMD is going to be. And you should and can do that for every single one of your retirement accounts that are traditional funds at every financial institution.
Thank you so much. I'm going to skip to a question. It goes back to a question that we've already answered. Please answer whether your TSP is supposed to have an RMD if you are still working beyond age 73. And I know this answer if you want me to take it, or you go ahead, Madison.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So no. And that's what kind of makes TSPs aren't classified as 401ks. They're QRPs. They're qualified retirement plans. So if you are still working, because it's not considered a 401k, you do not have to start taking your RMD until you're not actively working for the federal government or military personnel. Great question. Anything you want to add, Madison?
No, that was perfect.
All right, I'm going to hand it back over to Eddie, if that's okay.
Please do. Please do. Thank you so much. And I love how Kim, share her expertise as well. And as you can see, our panelists team, we all try to work with each other so we can answer these questions to the best of our ability. Now, Madison, if you have to draw on before RMD age or some amount, is there a penalty or a higher tax rate implicated on that?
So that's a great question. And the answer is it depends. So if you are younger than 59 and a half, yes, you are going to be taxed. If your money is tied up in an investment that if you break early has a penalty, you will also be penalized. So I am in my 30s. I have an IRA at USSFCU. And it's been a hard year. And so I want to go and I want to take that money out. I am going to be taxed and penalized because I'm too young and I broke a CD. After the age of 59 and a half, you are eligible to remove funds from your retirement account because you are of the age that it's normal to be retired. So, you are no longer going to be typically in taxed. If you are nervous about a specific situation, you should talk to a tax advisor. I'm just speaking generally. But let's say that I am 65 or even that I'm, 71 and I have a CD and my money is locked in that CD. I can remove those funds and I will not be taxed because I'm of retirement age, but I will be penalized for breaking the CD. So it's really important if you're going to take a distribution to pay attention to, am I going to be taxed and am I going to be penalized? Because the answer can be different depending on your different circumstance.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think that's why we encourage you to talk to, Madison in certain cases, that tax advisor or that, financial expert matters, so that way you can answer specific questions, because just because I'm going through a certain situation, it doesn't mean it will be the same for Carrie, for Kim, and even for Madison. So
absolutely. And there are exceptions too. So like if with a Roth IRA, you can take out money for education expenses before you're 59 and a half. So there are ways around if you need funds and it's for specific reasons, there are ways to get money out without being 59 and a half or older as well.
All right. Thank you so much. I think, Carrie, a lot of people are asking, kind of the same thing, which is when can I find previous recorded webinars, more material about these topics as well? You want to promote our social channels like YouTube? I think they can see that recordings there, correct?
Yeah, well, the recorded sessions, typically we get them up there. Sometimes we don't put every recorded session up, but we'll get this one up there on YouTube. Should be a couple days. Tomorrow, I'll send out the slides to everybody and a link to some of the resources Madison discussed, as well as Michael's contact, Madison's contact, that Retirement Central portal. That's a good one. Yeah. And you want me
Perfect.
to take over the questions, Eddie, so we can knock them out?
I'll do one more. I'll do one more.
Okay.
I'll do one more if that's okay with you. I'm very excited. I love questions. Not when I answer them though. I like y'all answering the questions. Another question, Madison, or feel free for anyone on the panel seeing that, wants to take a stab at it, is if I have inherited an IRA from a deceased parent, can I take RMDs and move the distribution into an IRA for me? Does it matter if it is a traditional IRA or Roth IRA? I think that's a great question.
Yeah. So, okay. So the only reason that if you have inherited an IRA from your parents, that you would need to take an RMD is if they were over the age of 73 and already taking them. So if any other circumstance, if your parents were younger than that, if it was a Roth, those kind of factors mean that you would not need to take out an RMD. You could absolutely take distributions, like normal distributions. And in fact, there are some requirements for you to do so. You can't just leave it in your parents' IRA forever. And there's different rules based on, like what type of beneficiary you are and things like that, and how the IRAs were set up and different kinds of IRAs and all the things. And so I don't want to get too much into the weeds on that one. But if you have inherited an IRA for somebody over the age of 73 or older, know that you need to take RMDs. If they are younger than that, it is worth it to figure out what your obligations are and benefits are as the beneficiary. And you can talk to us one-on-one. You can talk to tax advisor, financial guide, all the resources to figure out what your options are for taking the money out.
All right. Thank you so much for answering that. I think that was a great answer. And talk to the experts. They can give you, that various scenario to see what, legal terms are, you as a beneficiary to take advantage of, that whatever inheritance that you got from your parents. Miss Carrie Lazar, it's time to shine once again.
All right, let's knock these out. So on the back to the life expectancy tables, I'm assuming on the number 3 includes if spouse has died or you are divorced. So what if no beneficiary is named? So 2 questions. On number 3 includes if spouse has died or you are divorced, question mark. What if no beneficiary is named?
So if your spouse has passed away, then you no longer have a spouse that's 10 years younger than you. So you would go back to the uniform life table. If what was the other situation?
What if no beneficiary is named?
Okay. If there's no beneficiary named, then you would use the default one. I will say that if I have one plea in this world, it would be to start contributing to your IRA young. If I had a second plea in this world, it would be to name beneficiaries. If you do not name beneficiaries, it wreaks havoc on the people who will end up getting the money, and a lot of money is lost and just absorbed back into the government because people don't list beneficiaries. Please list beneficiaries. You can list anyone. You don't need that much information. You can list a charity. You can list me. I will be your beneficiary if you want. My name is Madison Love. It's right there. But list a beneficiary. It's really, really, really important. It makes a big difference. If you have a beneficiary listed on your account, it does not apply to your IRA because IRAs are individuals. Bank accounts and credit union accounts are not individual. So you have to have a beneficiary specifically designated to your IRA. Again, I highly recommend trust accounts. And then you can just list your beneficiary as your trust. Any details, any changes you want to make can all be done with the trust and it automatically applies. But list a beneficiary, please.
When you do a gift tax of 19K to a family member, is a form required to be filled out each year
Nope.
to IRS?
Nope. So you will continue just to take out distributions like you normally would, and then you are able to just give that to your person. You can double check that with a tax advisor, but if if there isn't like like it's pretty easy to prove that it was under 19,000 and and all the things. So no, you just take out a normal distribution like you would anyway, and then you can give it to whomever you'd like.
Did you go over the multiple charitable gifts to meet the RMD again? I didn't hear Eddie ask that one.
I don't think I did. So you can give up to $19,000 per individual. So let's say you have 3 kids and 2 grandchildren, or 3 kids and 6 grandchildren. You can give up to $19,000 to each of those individuals. And like married people don't count, like parent and child doesn't count, like as like combined. You don't have to like be combined under that. You also don't have to give it to family. Like if you are a big fan of your neighbor, like you can give up to 19,000 to your neighbor. So and if you want to give, what you really want to do is give your neighbor $30,000, then you can give 19 to your neighbor and the rest to your neighbor's spouse or whatever. But it's individually based. It's $19,000. Essentially, it's $19,000 per social security number.
Okay. Are you okay on time, Madison?
I am. Yep.
Okay. So I turn 73 in 2026. If I defer to April 1st, 2027, does that mean I'll basically avoid paying taxes on that RMD in 2026 because I didn't take it?
So not really. You will, because you're still going to remove it. So let's say, like you take it out in like March 15th, right? Because I would not recommend doing it on the first, because if it takes extra time to process or something like that, it can mess you up. But if let's say you take it out on March 15th, you are taking it out for the 2026 year. And like, let's say you wait until close to the deadline for 2027, then you'll need to take out another one for 2027 in that year. So when you go to pay your 2026 taxes, you will, that RMD will be included. That's why the deadline is April 1st and not April 15th, is because you're still expected to pay your taxes on time, and that will be factored in.
Kim, I'm going to put a couple links in the chat to some of these past webinars specific do you want to take over? Or I know some have been answered, some are duplicates or.
There's one that I was going to jump to. We're going back to the thrift savings plan, which is qualified retirement plans for federal workers and military personnel. So the question is, I am confused regarding TSP. There were 2 different answers. Do you need to take out an RMD for a thrift savings plan if you are 73 but are still working? And I'm going to assume you are stating that you are still working for the federal government. So if you are still working for the federal government, you do not have to take a required minimum distribution. This is only pertains to thrift savings accounts. You can delay taking your RMD until April 1st of the year following the calendar year in which you separate from service. I hope that makes sense. And do you agree with that, Madison?
Yeah, the other answer, I don't want to say it because I don't want to add to the confusion, but the other answer is for different types of retirement plans. And that's one of the reasons that there's different types of retirement plans, is because different retirement plans offer different benefits based on who they serve. So that is a TSP specific benefit. And that's why there's 2 answers, is because that's not true for most retirement plans. But for TSPs, Kim said it perfectly.
And I don't know if we have stated this yet or not, but Michael Schimmel with Fellows, he actually specializes in TSPs. Yeah. So please feel free to call Michael. It is a free consultation. That is his specialty, is thrift savings plans. So if you have questions beyond this webinar, feel free to reach out to Michael. Let me see what else I'm hoping. And I just want to also say we are always so respectful of everyone's time. I know we have gone way over in time, but we have a lot of great questions. So I just want to say thank you for hanging in here with us. And if you can't, just remember you will have a recording of this webinar and you will get the PowerPoint slides. So just wanted to say thank you for your patience. Here's one. If your RMD is taken from, say, another savings institution, does it cover you from other savings institutions you have IRA funds in? And I'm happy to answer this one. That answer is yes.
Exactly.
If you want to elaborate, you can.
Yeah. So the goal is to figure out, if you want to do that, if that's your situation, then it's a great strategy and I recommend it. But what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to figure out how much the total RMD that you as an individual needs to take out. And then you get to decide where you take it from. So the only downside to doing that is that if you call Fidelity and you say, hey, what's my RMD? And you want to take it all out from Fidelity, they are not going to have any information on what you have at USSFCU. So you need to and you can call USSFCU and say, hey, what's my RMD? I'll tell you. And then you can go to Fidelity and take it out of Fidelity, or vice versa, or whatever financial institution you want. But so absolutely, like, you can take it from whatever retirement account you want to take it from.
So I'm pretty sure we talked about early withdrawals and penalties.
Yeah.
Somebody was asking, what about early withdrawals penalties? But I believe they asked that before we actually covered that slide. So if that person is still on and you still want us to briefly address that, we'll be glad to. Just put it back in the chat. We answered that one. So one thing somebody wanted us to mention, Madison, is that if you take the RMD by April 1st of the year after you turn 73, you will have to take a second RMD by December 31st of that same year. So that could be 2 RMDs. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So if you decide to take that first year, like, latency option, then that is satisfying the prior year. So it has nothing, like, if I take out my RMD in March or in February, that has nothing to do with the year, like the current year. So, like, if I turned 73 last year, and I waited until March to take it out, that has nothing to do with 2025. So I would still need to take it out in 2025 for the 2025 RMD.
So did we already address, like, I guess if there's no beneficiary, does a will take care of it? Did we ask that? So the person said, not sure what you mean.
If you have no beneficiary, essentially what happens is that the IRA goes into probate, and whoever wants to fight for it gets to fight for it. It can be costly. It can be emotionally taxing. You're going to get lawyers involved, all the things. It's not pleasant. Now, obviously, because, that can take a long time, like, that's a different situation for RMDs and things. So, but, and I'm not a tax advisor, I can't get into all the details of that. But, the only way that your IRA is taken care of by, like, a blanket thing is if it's, like, in a trust account. And then you list your trust account as your beneficiary for your IRA. So you really, really, really need to list, you really, really need to list a beneficiary for your IRA. If you are worried about that, call us and we will tell you who's currently listed or what's currently listed. And you can change that at any time. You can change it every 3 days if you want. Like, you can change that anytime, but just have somebody and something listed. Yeah, I hope that answers.
Thank you. Yep. If your retirement account, this might be another question for Michael Schimmel. If your retirement account is held in stocks, can you transfer the stocks to an investment account to fulfill the RMD, or do you have to sell the stocks in the IRA, then put the funds into your investment account?
It depends on the it depends on like the financial institution or the brokerage's policies and what they're capable of. In order to move the stocks into like an investment account, that's called an in-kind distribution. And so whether it's stocks or a home or whatever, gold, whatever the case may be, if that institution allows in-kind distributions, then sure, that's fine. And you would need to reach out to that institution. I can say that most like credit unions and like mainstream banks do not offer in-kind distributions. So for instance, if at USSFCU you wanted to take your RMD from a CD with us and you wanted to put it back into a CD, we would take it out of that CD, we would liquidate it. Now we wouldn't charge you any penalties for it. And then we would put it into your account, and then we'd open you up a new CD at whatever the new rate was.
Thank you. So we talked about the recordings for all of these webinars. We have these archived on our website, www.ussfcu.org. The very last tab to the right is called Best Life. When you click on Best Life, look at the tabs on the left, and you're going to see recorded webinars. They go all the way back to 2023. So you are more than welcome to go back, watch any webinar that you need to, and share them with anyone that you think could benefit from them.
And I did throw it's easier sometimes just go to YouTube. You can find them all in one place. It displays better.
Thank you, Carrie.
I threw the link in the chat, and I specifically threw the link to Michael's Roth conversion one that Madison mentioned.
Oh, thank you so much. And I think we've answered everything unless I have missed something.
Did we get
keep me honest.
The Q&A ones, the ones that came under the Q&A?
We did.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I hope we got them all. I think we got them all.
Yeah.
If there's not, I'll just give everyone a second.
And don't forget, we do work Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5, or some people work till 4. So feel free, if you think of something after the fact, please give Madison a call.
Absolutely.
And she'll be more than happy to answer.
The IRA service at
yeah, exactly. There it is right in front of us, IRA service at ussfcu.org. And maybe we could even come up with a Q&A to put out there on the website from this webinar.
Oh, that would be great.
There's a lot of them. So that would be.
So I'm going to turn it back over to Eddie to send us off, but I want to say thank you for Carrie.
He had to go.
Oh,
he had a church
sorry,
event.
Carrie.
But
you want to?
I'll just say thank you all for coming. Thank you very much, Madison, for sharing your knowledge. I hear your kids laughing and having fun in the background, so I'm sure it's dinner time. But if you have any last words, Madison, please feel free.
No, I just want to say thank you again. I don't know that I would have necessarily thought to present on this topic. So again, I just want to say thank you to the member who asked for it. It turns out like it was a really, really important and valuable thing to talk about. I'm so grateful for the questions, and like has been said, I'm always here to answer questions. So reach out to me in whatever way is most convenient for you if you come up with another one.
Oh, thank you, Madison. And we always say no members, no credit union. So just know that you are so valued and appreciated as our members. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Well, everybody, thanks again and have a wonderful evening. And we hope to see you next Wednesday. We're meeting at 3 p.m. Eastern time, and we're going to talk about all things about cryptocurrency. So that'll be interesting. So we hope you'll join us. Watch for that invite. And thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks again, Madison.